Well, hello. It is it's a little surreal right now for sure. Thank you, those of you that are already on. I appreciate you being here. Do me a favor, as we've done in all of our other live streams. If this is your first time watching, this is a new thing we're doing here on this channel. I used to live stream on a different channel. Loved it. It was one of my favorite things. So that's what I want to do here. But do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from. We do have a handful of people watching. Not expecting a huge audience today because we're a brand new channel and it takes a little while to gain some traction. But do me a favor, if you're watching, let me know where you're watching from. I know we've got some folks watching over on Facebook and on YouTube both. So yeah, do me a favor in the chat, let me know. So let me introduce myself. If this is your first time on the live stream, my name is Jeremy. I really, honey, you shouldn't be texting from the freeway. Yay. Anyway, yeah, so let me introduce myself. I'm Jeremy, Jeremy Pales with Color Gamut Consulting. I used to be with DTF Superstore, but have gone out on my own to do more of like what I love to do, which is the education and the color profiling. Color profiling is something I've picked up and learned and dived deep into. And so I'm going to teach a lot of that stuff. I'm going to help people profile their machines. I've already done a couple and looking forward to doing a lot more. And some of the services that I'm going to be offering, aside from the education that you'll see on the YouTube channel here, there's going to be I do artwork stuff. I know a couple of folks have already reached out to me. I've done some artwork stuff, prepping like halftones and different things like that for them. I'm also going to do some troubleshooting and some tech support type stuff. So if somebody's having a bunch of issues and they're struggling to get some support, we can hop on a phone call, a Zoom call, and I can offer some of those support things. The pricing's not up on my website. It will be up soon. That's something I'm working on putting together. So colorgamutconsulting.com. Also on the website is going to be some tools and things like that. I've already got a couple of texture packs on the website for purchase, and I am going to be soon offering some products. So T-Seal, which if you've followed me for any length of time, you know I love T-Seal as a finishing sheet. I'll have more videos about that as we move forward, but I will be selling that on the website. I'm also getting ready to sell Mamaki ink. So if you're looking for consumables and you need a good source for Mamaki inks, I'm working with a company that drop ships, so I don't have to have inventory here. I work off of their massive inventory. And yeah, lots of other exciting things happening. I'm also going to be offering to install printers. Also color profile printers. If you have multiple printers, we can get them working together. I'm also a dealer for Digital Factory. So if you're looking to get a better RIP software, I am a Digital Factory dealer. I'm also a Neo Stampa dealer, which I'm really excited about. I think Neo Stampa, from a color standpoint, is ahead of everybody else in the game for color. But when it comes to like some ease of use and just kind of turnkey stuff, Digital Factory is a great resource and, quite frankly, the most widely used RIP software. But anyway, enough about kind of some of that establishing things. Let's get into the topic for today. If you guys do have questions, drop them in the chat. And if you do pop on, if you just popped on, let me know where you're watching from. So today we're going to talk about CMYK versus RGB for your editing mode. And this is a question that people commonly ask in Photoshop, in whatever software you're using, Illustrator. Should you be editing in RGB or should you be editing in CMYK? And I'm going to show you why I think you should be doing just RGB. Now, there's a lot of folks that have a workflow that they've set up that is using CMYK properly, and you've got a good spot color arrangement set up where it's working for you. Go for it. Do it. Awesome. Hello, Artistic Gifts from LA. Will you do me a favor? Let me know. Did you find me new or did you come from my previous? Have you seen me before? I'd love to know that because I've not seen your avatar on the chat before. So let me know. So I'm going to recommend you go RGB, and here is why. If you make your ecosystem RGB, for you, it's going to be the most convenient for all the people that are sending you graphics. Because if you have somebody, and there's been a lot of talk about using Canva, but Canva is always going to export RGB. PNGs, if you're bringing PNGs into your RIP software, it's always using RGB. There's no way to embed a different color into that RGB and actually show you what happens when you try to export. So first, let's start with like a vector file, which is the most or the best quality file for you to be editing with. So let's pop into Illustrator here. And we've got this vector file. It was made using RGB, which is fine. Again, that's going to be a lot of what people are going to be bringing in is RGB type files. And the reason that I suggest staying in RGB is because what the monitor produces is RGB. So I took this Illustrator file, and we're going to pop over to Photoshop and open it up in Photoshop. So let me grab this real quick. And for those of you who have been on my live streams before, you know that I usually like to have like all of my things, all my ducks in a row. And today is definitely going to be a little bit of a learning curve as we get going. Awesome. I appreciate it. So thank you for finding me. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles as I start something new is having that audience that I had built over there, finding me over here. So I appreciate you being on. Okay. So I'm going to import that PDF or that Illustrator file. It says PDF. That's just the way that it works. But I'm going to bring this in 12 inches wide. I'm going to bring it in as RGB color. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just simply going to say, take this, bring it in as RGB. And then I'm going to open it again, but this time I'm going to bring it in as CMYK. Okay. Now, if I switch back and forth between these two, oops, I apologize. Let me do that again. I brought it in way bigger than the other one. There we go. Okay. 12 and CMYK. There we go. Okay. So if I switch back and forth between these two, you're probably going to notice very, very little difference. If anything, you're going to notice it. Look around this green teal area here. So this is CMYK. That's RGB. CMYK, RGB. Now, the problem with this is the computer or Photoshop on this computer is assuming a certain rendering intent. Your RIP software, when it's converting from an RGB image to a CMYK image, there are 4 rendering intent options. One is called perceptual, one is saturation, one is relative colorimetric, and the other is absolute colorimetric. C-O-L-O-R-I metric, colorimetric. And most RIP softwares, it's hard to tell or know what rendering intent it's using. And sometimes you actually have to put in the rendering intent as you're building that ICC profile. But the rendering intent changes the look of it dramatically. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's go back into Photoshop. We're going to pull up the RGB, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here in the section that is the most different. And this is the thing between RGB and CMYK. Sometimes there's no difference in the colors, but oftentimes there will be a subtle difference. So I'm going to go here to View, Proof Setup, and I'm going to go Custom. So let's watch that blue. Right now, I'm going to have it go to a working CMYK. Here's the problem. If you don't have your printer's ICC profile or the CMYK profile built into Photoshop, it's not going to render it right because it's using different information. But on top of that, your computer monitor, there's a whole bunch of different filtering and stuff. This is why I'm not a fan of switching a whole bunch of times, sticking with RGB. So, but we're going to just use working USO or web-coded swap V2. That's fine. So I'm going to hit the preview button and we're going to see it change. So specifically, this color right here looks pretty dramatically different. We go to a little more muted. So let me change the rendering intent to perceptual. Wow, that changed the whole thing. Look at that. And if I go to saturation, preview, and let's go to absolute colorimetric. That's preview. That's the original. So in this case, in this specific conversion, it is with absolute colorimetric, it's trying to make them brighter. Now, knowing what the rendering intent is super important, but making it consistent for all of your stuff is what's more important. Understanding what your system's doing. So if you are editing in CMYK on your computer, it is doing some stuff to the colors to try to represent best what it's going to look like when it prints, but it's not totally accurate to what your printer's going to do. So what we need to do, or what's better, is to just edit in that RGB. Otherwise, you're getting a false idea of what the color looks like, and most of your customers are going to be working in RGB as well. The other problem is the only way you can export to a lot of RIP software, specifically Digital Factory, is with a PDF or a PNG. A PNG is always going to default to RGB. A PDF, you can save it with the CMYK information embedded into it. There's other vector formats that you could do that as well. But again, most of your customers, if you're selling transfers or even if you're making shirts for someone and they're designing the graphic, it's going to be edited with RGB. So that's why I understand it can work totally with CMYK, but when you try to do that conversion, because what happens is if you edit in CMYK and then it converts it to RGB to export as a PNG, and then the RIP software is taking that RGB and converting it to CMYK, which is what the printer does. Instead of doing all those conversions, just edit everything RGB and then let the RIP software do what it's supposed to do and convert that to CMYK. Now, let me show you what happens. Let's going to pop over to our PC. And there we go. So what I did is I went ahead and saved those files. I saved them as both a PNG and a PDF. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that happens here. So this is, and you're going to get a couple tricks here on Digital Factory, how to preview what's going on with your graphic. So let's look at the CMYK, and we're going to use job color replacement as a way to see what the printer is going to actually output for a specific color. All right. So in this case, I want, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit and see better what I'm working with. Maybe. I usually work with such large graphics. I've not ever had it ask me to zoom it in. Okay. So we're going to use, look at this, between these two, like, I don't know if you can see it on your computer screens, but it is a very subtle difference. But let's grab this one that's actually the next one over. And if we eyedropper it, if you look up here in your job color replacement, that's telling you what ink outputs the printer is going to use based off of the ICC profile that we're using in this print mode. I hope that makes sense. And so in this case, it's saying 44.3 and 40.8. So hopefully we can remember that 44.3, 40.8. So 44.3, 40.8. Let's grab this. And again, these were the CMYK version exported as a PNG, the RGB version exported, oops, sorry about that, exported as a PNG. So select this one, 43.5, 40.8. So pretty close. That one's actually not that big of a difference. But let me show you what happens when we load in those PDFs. Actually, before I show you that, let me show you something you can do to inspect what's happening with your ICC profile. So I just double clicked on this job. And if I go into color layer and ICC profile, you're going to note that because it's a PNG, there's not really an embedded color profile. So everything looks pretty standard here. Now, I will show you something. If you click on these three dots here, nope, that's not it. It's the drop down. If you click on the drop down here, it'll actually give you some options for your rendering intent. Now, how exactly it does this rendering intent, I've still not gotten a super clear answer on, but I do know these are your standard perceptual, absolute, relative, and perceptual, relative, saturation, and absolute. Those are those four that were in Photoshop. So if you want to change the rendering intent that it's using as a default, you can do that. But just know it's gonna tweak with some stuff. Okay, so let me show you what happens when we enter in a couple PDFs that have a color profile embedded into them. Let's remove those guys real quick. There we go. And then let's add those PDFs that have it's dark in here. I was pushing the wrong button. All right, loading them in. Okay, first, let's just double click on this and see the ICC profile it's using. So if we click on the color layer, you're going to see how it's got a different name in here. It's literally pulling in the ICC or the color profile that we embedded in that PDF. This is why PDFs can be a little bit more powerful from a tweaking standpoint if you're really trying to get something tweaked or dialed in. But again, I would encourage you to stay within like a certain ecosystem of color spaces and things like that. But this just shows you PDFs come with that color embedded into it. But let me show you what happens. Let's do that same job color replacement we did before. And if I remember correctly, I think we were like 44.3 and 40.8 or something like that. This is the CMYK with it embedded. We're going to grab this color here and look at that. We're at 48.2 and 44.3. So because of the CMYK information embedded in there, it's actually choosing a different color output on the printer. And this is the problem, is that if you don't realize necessarily what it's doing, and hopefully the ICC profile is handling these things well, but this is why the input numbers, like what the CMYK or RGB numbers you're putting in are, can affect the output if you're exporting it as a CMYK versus an RGB. And again, this is mostly information I'm trying to show you so that you understand what's happening and why it's a good idea to keep in one color space. So let's do the same thing with this. It's probably going to be very similar to what those PNGs were, because the PNGs are exported as RGBs. And this job color replacement, depending on your computer, might take an eternity to load. 41.2 and 40.8. Oh, look, and it's got a little bit of black mixed in there. And I bet it's because instead of using, let's double click on this, instead of using the standard sRGB color, I bet it's using its own custom. Yep, it embedded a specific color profile when I exported it. And again, this is where we run into problems, and especially end users that don't understand. Yes, you can tweak with some stuff, and there's a lot of options in Digital Factory and other RIP softwares to tweak and mess with this stuff. But the bottom line is, if you edit it differently and export it with some color profile embedded into it, it's going to change the results. So I would encourage you to kind of stick with like an sRGB, which technically CMYK can do some extra colors than sRGB does. But the majority of the graphics you're going to get from people, whether they're from Etsy, from Canva, from Photoshop, and just somebody just editing it, or Corel Draw or whatever, any PNG is going to generally be embedded with an sRGB color profile. So as a rule of thumb, I would stick with RGB, just because you're not doing multiple conversions, and the ICC profile, like when I create an ICC profile, I'm trying to get as close to what you would see on your computer screen as possible. Barring your computer screen is also profiled. There's definitely so many layers to this. It's just, it's crazy. I've got a few more things to say about this, but for those of you that are on, if you've got questions, anything about DTF, I'm happy to answer them. So if you do have some questions, drop them in the chat. Also, if you've jumped on since we started, let me know in the chat where you're watching from. But yeah, so when it comes to getting like more like vibrant spot colors, a lot of folks chase changing your RGB number. And that doesn't always work because when you export, oftentimes you're exporting to an sRGB profile, which can sometimes limit those RGB codes and numbers. So if you're trying to hit some spot colors, what I would encourage you to do is use what I was just showing you in Digital Factory, or other softwares have the same thing, but encourage you to use the output colors of the printer, not your input colors of your graphics. So in this case, let's just say I was trying to do, whoops, clicking the wrong thing, job color replacement. Let's say I was trying to do these colors as spot colors, not just process colors that come into the system. So let's say I want to do this blue. And I'm going to move this over so I can look at you guys while I look at this. So you can customize what output you want to do. You can tell it, I want you to mix the colors a different way than it's currently mixing it. And there are some tools in Digital Factory and some other softwares that will print up a chart of colors close to a color you pick, but basing it off of the output color of the printer. So what I'm saying is, like, let's say you need somebody wants you to match Pantone 200C. It's red. I'm pretty sure that's the one that Ohio State uses. But they will have like an RGB code, but that RGB code does not necessarily output on the printer exactly right. And you could chase moving those RGB numbers, but I think you'd be better off chasing moving the output numbers on your printer. So these numbers. And so I am going to, I'm working on a video that will show you how to do that, because it's a little bit convoluted with how it works. And I'm going to show how to do it in Digital Factory as well as Neostampa. Also, hopefully give some tips on how to do it with other RIP softwares as well. But that will be coming, because that is a big piece. And I think that chasing the RGB settings in Photoshop does not get you the results that you're looking for. I think you'll have better results by using the output color on the printer. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a whole bunch of deep stuff. Again, if you got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm wrapping up. And usually when I start wrapping up is when everybody jumps in with questions. But for those of you that are watching, thank you so much. Getting this thing starting from scratch, we had almost 14,000 or almost over 14,000 subs at my last place when I left. And that's a little terrifying. Leaving from that to what was 0 subs. We're at 116 subs today, I think. And it's definitely, I'm passionate about wanting to get that audience to find me over here. So if you would do me a favor and share this as well, I appreciate it. But just you being on here is super amazing. And for those of you that have already reached out to me for printer profiling and for graphic design help and things like that, thank you. It is definitely helping as we're in this transition period. And something I'm really excited about is I have inked a partnership deal with a printer manufacturer. It's going to include, they're sending me a printer. So currently in my space, it's dark right now, as you can't see anything, but I currently don't have anything. So I have a printer. It's actually should be shipping later today or tomorrow or Monday. And and I'll do a whole big announcement for that because it's super awesome that they're partnering with me. They're helping support by sponsoring these live streams. And it's going to be either including their equipment or just simply a logo up in the corner. But they're also going to be helping me make some content for my channel. I'm helping make some content for their channels. I'm also going to be going out to do some of their dealer training and some live events. So I'm pretty excited about the partnership. They were actually one of the first people I wanted to reach out to when I went this alone, because I was like, if there's somebody that I can partner with, it's these guys. So keep an eye out. We'll announce it possibly on the first live stream in May, because that's when when everything gets going. All right, we did have a question come in. This thing could be big. So, question about the new Epson DTF printer. It's good. They're using, I don't know what head they're using. I don't think they're wanting people to know what head they're using. But it prints pretty quick. It is a single head, but it's a pretty advanced single head because you can get better passes. I think they're doing some offset thing with the head, but it's pretty fast. It's around 100 square feet, give or take a little bit. I've seen some different ideas. Epson has said you can do 120, but I think that's probably white only or very, very lowish quality. But so my guess is going to be around the 80 to 120 range for speed. With the Epson printer, you are locked into their inks, which I don't think is a problem that you're locked into a certain company for their inks. I think that, sorry, I'm balancing my AC in here, and sometimes it's like really cold, and then I'm like hot. I got to figure that out. But they're locking into a specific ink is not a bad thing. I think that most of y'all should find a good quality ink and just stick with it and not try changing it, because it causes a lot of potential issues. But better quality ink that is made through their system is not a bad thing. However, it's Epson. We don't really know the full pricing of them yet. I think they're going to, yeah, I heard some inklings of it, but I don't want to quote it because I don't want to misrepresent it. But they're like 1.6 liter bags or something like that, or 1 liter bags that go into it. The price of the printer is really surprisingly low, but exactly, it's surprisingly low. But I think the cost of ink is going to be pretty high, and even if it's not starting out high, I think it will get there. So there we go. Sweet. Thank you for having the answers to my questions. That's awesome. 160 for 1.6 liters of ink. So DuPont ink runs like $75 for a 1-ish liter bottle, or like just under 1 liter, because they do them in kilograms sometimes. But love it. Yeah. So ink cost is pretty expensive on that Epson. Should be a great quality ink. Should look really good. The previews I've seen look really good, but yeah, it's pretty beefy, and it's really wide. They went 35 inches on it. And honestly, when it comes to like size of print area, I personally don't think you need a whole lot more than 27. I'd love to see like a 14-inch-ish, because then you can do a 13-inch wide graphic, like a really beefy graphic, 13-inch wide. And then if you did 27, you could do 13 inches up next to each other. Because like anything above that, you get into like superfluous stuff. Like it's extra room. If you got some smaller graphs, you can fit them in there. But yeah, but it's pretty wide. So the dryer shakers that accompany it are even bigger than the dryer shakers that accompanied the CMYK printers. So yeah, overall, it looks nice. The thing that excites me is it's another big company getting into DTF, like specific DTF printing machines. And that is a good thing for the industry. And that's something that I plan to push and promote on this channel a ton, is that I want to help advance this industry. And these new players coming on board, the Epson, Roland's got it now, CMYK, all these different companies are going to help the industry as a whole. All right, let's see. Yeah, 12 inches wide. Yeah, 12 inches is kind of a normal width. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'1", about 275 pounds. So I'm a big fella. And I think this is 12 on a back, like 13 is crazy, but 13 by 19 is a pretty standard screen print, like max width. So that's kind of why I was thinking in terms of that. But yeah, 12 wide is big. So if you get like a smaller format printer, I encourage people getting one that's capable of doing like 13, 14, because then you can max it out to do really big stuff. Whereas if you get like a 12-inch or a 13-inch, a lot of times you're only able to do like a little bit less than that graphic. So because a lot of times the width and then what you can actually print on can keep narrowing down. So sometimes, especially like 12 inches, you can only do like 11 inches wide. So pre-ordered it. Cool. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear your feedback on it once you get it. But yeah, so they started pre-ordering that back in January. And Go Loud Graphics, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your feedback, see your feedback. And if you have questions or anything you want to reach out, there's my email and my website, colorgamutconsulting.com. You can go on there. There's a way to contact me if you got questions, but still figuring out what day I plan to do my normal live streams. I do not plan to do them normally on Friday because I think Friday is a rough day because you're finishing up all your work for the week. You're cramming those last little jobs that need to get done before the weekend. So probably looking at an earlier point in the week, like maybe a Tuesday, but that may ebb and flow a little bit. But do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. That way to let you know when we do go live. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Wouldn't miss it. Now, were you watching my other stuff before and you found me? Because again, that's what I'm like. I need my people to find me. I need my crowd. I need my crew to find me. But yeah, so subscribe to the channel. I don't know what I think about Facebook's algorithms for their pages. So I do have a page for Color Gamut Consulting, but I think most people are going to find me through my personal page. So I'm still feeling that out because I want to be able to communicate with people, but I also want to have like a professional front. Anyway, awesome. I appreciate you guys watching. That's going to do it for today. First live stream on the new channel in the new space. Again, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And let's start making amazing DTF together. Thanks, guys.